Fandom, how's it going? Today we are reviewing The Almighty Preacher. And if you have not read this, I'm telling you right now, this is my favorite series of all time. And I recommend it to anybody who's over the age of 50? 55 maybe? So you're probably wondering why I said that I recommend this book to somebody who's over the age of 55. And the reason behind that is that if you are somebody who gets easily offended by something, and I mean very easily offended by something, and you don't have thick skin, this is not a book for you. It is hilarious, it is violent, it is over the top, and it is a blast. Preacher tells the story of Reverend Jesse Custer, and Jesse Custer at the beginning of the story is tired of his congregation. And the reason he's tired of it is because of the fact that during Monday through Saturday, they go out, they go drinking, they go fooling around, they go partying, but come on Sunday morning, they all show up and they all say, hey, you can't judge us because we are here in church and we're asking for forgiveness. What ends up happening is that Jesse Custer at the beginning of the story is possessed by this being called Genesis. And Genesis gives him the ability of what is called the Word of God. And with the Word of God, he is basically able to tell anybody to do something and they will do it literally to the T of what he says. So for example, if I had the Word of God and I said, you have to go to the beach and you have to count every single grain of sand. Doesn't matter, every single grain of sand on that beach, on that shoreline, and you cannot leave until you do it. You will do it and you will sit there 1, 2, 3, 4 throughout the entire thing. What ends up happening is that Jesse actually ends up meeting with his ex-girlfriend Tulip. And Tulip is now a hit woman. And she's just coming off of a hit that went really south really fast. Because of the failed hit, Tulip bumps into Cassidy. And Cassidy is actually a vampire. He's Irish, hard drinking, and he's not your stereotypical vampire. So if you're tired of kind of like those Twilight vampires that, oh, the bleakness of life, oh, I'm so sad, and all this other stuff, this isn't Cassidy. Cassidy's more of the guy that's like, cool, I'm a vampire, let's go do some tequila shots. So all three of them meet up and they find out through the being that has possessed Jesse that God has left his post. And Jesse at this point is mad because he sees it as a father leaving his son because God left an abandoned earth. And Jesse aims to go around the world and he is going to find God, and using his special ability, he is going to make God answer for everything. At its heart, the story is a modern-day Western, and what Garth Ennis does so well that he does in almost all of his books is that he gives you characters that you really like. You like Cassidy, you like Tulip, and you like Jesse, and you just hope that everything turns out okay for them, and that they finish up the mission that they started at the beginning of this series. I should probably also mention that this book is super violent. I mean, over the top, just limbs going everywhere. It's something that is not for the squeamish. I mean, there's a moment in here where a guy is falling out of a helicopter, and if you've read the series, you know what I mean, where the moment is, now you shall be with me in paradise, and then another guy goes, oh, great. Splat. I've mentioned in other videos that Garth Ennis kind of has a knack for creating villains that you love to hate, and he continues this trend in this series with his grandmother. His grandmother is a harpy of a woman that you cannot wait to see her get her comeuppance, and when it finally does go down, you are like, yes, it is literally a moment where you stand up and applaud because you are like, man, I do not like this lady at all, and all the things that she put Jesse through as a child, you're like, yeah, she deserved every single cent that she got out of that. Now, Jesse's grandmother isn't the only villain in this series. They also have iconic villains such as Her Star, and Her Star is, well, I'm not going to give away what he is, but he's really weird, and he's the leader of this military organization, and there's a moment in the book where he gets a cut on his forehead, and Jesse, Tulip, and Cassidy pointed out what it appears to be, and it's a moment where I busted out laughing and I started dying. I think the best thing about Preacher is that it's able to balance out the comedic moments with the kind of serious moments that are included in this series, because it's not all laughs and it's not all over the top. There are a lot of satirical things that go down in this series, and there are a lot of quiet moments. For example, one moment is that Tulip is asking Jesse, do you love me? And Jesse says, until the end of the world. And when you think about that sentence and when you really examine it, you're like, wow, yeah, to be able to tell that to somebody, that means that no matter what goes down, I will always love you. And that has weight to it. And in that moment, you're like, oh man, he really means this. Honestly, I could keep going on and on about this series. I absolutely adore it. And I haven't even touched on the subject matters of like the saint of all killers, Arseface, the Meat Man, and if you've read the series, you know who the Meat Man is, because you'll never get that image out of your head. Creepy. But I adore it. I give it my full rating endorsement. So with that, let's talk about the art for a minute. Steve Dillon's art is perfect for this series, and I mean this in the most meaningful way possible, because there is no Preacher without Steve Dillon. He is so integral to this story. He captures all the quiet moments. The panels flow very well. The breakdowns are there. He does a great job in the action moments. When things get tense, you feel the intensity in all the characters' faces and in their eyes. You're like, okay, this is about to go down. This is getting serious. It is just great stuff all the way through. Minor complaint though, if you do look at some of the earlier issues versus some of the later issues, what you're going to notice is that Dillon does evolve his style, but he kind of loses some details along the way. Like, the earlier issues are far more detailed than some of the stuff that he does later on, and maybe that's just him evolving, or maybe that's just, you know, he needed to hit certain deadlines, so he kind of had to change things up and go a little bit less detailed than what he did at the start. But those are minor quibbles aside. If there's one complaint that I've heard from people, it's that the first volume does take a bit of time to get things set up, but stick with it. And what's probably going to end up happening is the same thing that happened to me, where I read the first volume and I was like, okay, well, this is good, but I think maybe it was a bit overhyped. You then hit volume 2 and you're like, wow, this series is awesome. And then you're just going to go to Amazon and you're going to load up the cart with all the other 7 volumes in this series. There's 9 in total. They are all fun. They're a great read, and they look great on a shelf, by the way. So I know I've said this before, but I absolutely adore Preacher. It is one of my favorite series of all time. And if you are somebody that does not shy away from subject matters that are kind of sensitive culturally, and if you are somebody that does not get easily offended, this series is for you. I'm sorry, my younger readers. This one's not for you. This is mature only. I really do stress that on this one. But I adore this series. And the importance of Preacher is that it's one of those series that when it came out in the 90s, comics were in the dumps. And Preacher was that book that everybody went, no, you have to go pick up Preacher. Preacher is awesome. It helped boost the sales up in the industry. It helped reinvigorate the industry. And when the last issue hit, everybody was going, man, I could use more Preacher, but it's pretty much the perfect ending to the book. If this is your first time checking out my channel, I do weekly reviews of comic books, hardcovers, trade paperbacks like the one you just saw. Check out some of my other videos, and if you've read Preacher, what is your favorite Preacher moment? I'd love to hear back from you in the comment section below. Comment, subscribe, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. On Saturdays I am doing Twitch streaming. Follow that too. Love to hear back from you. You guys are always awesome.